This is intimate.
I was told that the biggest problem, Tyler, you're going to have this afternoon is getting Tony Robbins to come out of his shell. Okay, so don't be shy here today. It's all going to be good. We were talking backstage, and you teed up a question that I think is part of every business owner's journey, and that is the art and science of overcoming the obstacles that you face.
Yes.
They are inevitable.
Yes.
They are existential sometimes.
Yes.
They are fear-inducing most of the time. What do you do when you hit one of the obstacles?
Well, I think it's really important. First of all, it's great to be with you all here. I know you've had a full day, and I hope to add some real value to you in this brief time. I think it's really critical that you understand that everybody wants to grow their business, and we all go through different phases, right? Just like human beings go through phases. You know, you give birth to your business, and you're an infant, and an infant is a run for survival, and cash flow problems are a natural process in most cases, and you're running. Hopefully you get to a teenager where now cash flow is not a problem, you're growing like crazy, and then you have a new problem. You don't have systems in place. And maybe you get to young adult where you have to decide what you're not going to do. Eventually, hopefully you get to prime where you're growing your business revenues and you're growing your profits and you got a professional organization and you're not doing it. Because as long as you're doing it, really you don't have a business. What you have is you're self-employed. There's nothing wrong with being self-employed. But whenever you meet someone who's in business is stressed, they're always a business operator. And my focus is to become a business owner. How do you do that? You realize that the chokehold in the growth of your business is always the leader. And it's your skills and it's your psychology. And I found it's 80% psychology and 20% skills. You got to have the marketing skills. You got to be able to lead. You got to be able to recruit. You got to do all those things. But really, most importantly, you got to get it through what I call the threshold of control. And this, to me, is the secret to really succeeding in business. And it's pretty simplistic. How many of you snowboard or ski? Anybody out there snowboard or ski? To give you a sense? So most people are terminally intermediate when they get into that sport, right? You know, they really never get that good. They're not really a belong. They're kind of in the middle, and they never get much better. And I think the reason is they never push themselves beyond what they can handle, right? You're used to greens or blues, and you find yourself on a double black, and what happens? Everything inside you freaks out because you're past what I call the threshold of control, your comfort zone. And you look down, you go, I could die doing this. So now you have two choices. Either most people slam themselves on the ground, hang on for dear life, and try not to skid off the cliff, and at best what you do is survive, or a few people let go of their fear, no matter how scary it is, and goes, I got to go down this thing, and there's no other choice, and they focus on where they want to go instead of what they're afraid of, and they find a way to carve. And once you carve a few of them, that double black is your bitch, right? You don't have to worry about that anymore, right? And so that's what happens in business. So for me, I can remember going and starting my first business in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. I got on a radio show, and this person, it was a shock jock radio show, and I didn't know it, and they started attacking me and saying I'm a liar and a charlatan, you can't do these things. And this therapist called me up and said, you know what, I've dealt with people forever. You can't wipe out a phobia in less than an hour. It can take 7 years. I have a patient right now I've worked with for 7 years, and I've been able to solve this. And I said, great, bring that patient tonight. I'm doing a free guest event at the Holiday Inn, and I'll take care of that. It should take me 10 or 15 minutes. Right? and
you
so
do it?
I did it, and I was able to do it. I wrapped a snake around this woman. She had a snake phobia. A phobia is an uncontrollable response. So because of that, I had people coming to these guest events like crazy, and I thought I hit the home run, right? And I did this big guest event. There was like 1,000 people there, which for me would be like, I don't know, 100,000 people in an event right now. And after I was done, a bunch of people signed up for my seminar because I did a free value-add event, and then I would invite them to come spend 3 days with me. And this man walks up to me, and he's from immigration. He goes, a great seminar. He goes, I'd like to see your work permit. And I said, what's a work permit? Right? You know, when you're in beginning business, you don't know these things, right? He goes, well, to work in this country, you need a work permit. And he said, I'll tell you what, I got to see you tomorrow at 5:30. I goes, well, my seminar starts at 7. He goes, you'll be fine, just you got to be there at 5:30. He said, I'm not asking, it's a requirement. So I show up at 5:30, I wait for half an hour, now I'm starting to stress. And finally I sit down with a guy and he says, you're taking away Canadian jobs. I said, how many Canadian firewalkers are there? Come on, that's what I was doing those days. And he said, no, you teach NLP skills, neuro-linguistic programming, and these people have classes of 20 people and you got a class of 500. And so they say you're taking jobs, so your event is over. So what do you mean your event's over? He goes, if you walk on that stage tonight, we will handcuff you and deport you. This is what I call a threshold of control. Right? He says, you're going to have to give the money back. I said, I can't give the money back. I spent all the money to put on the seminar. I wasn't a good businessman. I just wanted to help everybody, right? So I spent all the money to do it. And he goes, you have no money? Well, you're going to have to deal with that. So I walked out of the building. I have 40 minutes. People are going to arrive. I can't go on stage. What do you do? I told my 3 staff members, 2 of which were volunteers, what happened. They're like, and I said, here's what we're doing. I'm doing this seminar. And he said, you're going to go to jail. I said, I'm not going to jail. I said, how close is the border? True story. And they said, well, there's a place called Bellingham, Washington. It's about an hour and 40 minutes. I said, rent me 6 buses, and I'll meet the people out front before they go in the hotel. So it's not a problem. I met everybody up front. They said, this is a traveling seminar. It's a surprise, right?
We're going to Bellingham.
We're going to America. And it was a 3-day seminar. We had to go and come back each day and night for 3 days in a row. I got all but 4 people to agree to do it. And then I got to Bellingham, Washington at the Holiday Inn there, and there was like a bar mitzvah or a wedding or some stuff next door, and it was so loud you couldn't hear anybody. And so I said, just lie on the floor, close your eyes, I'm going to hypnotize you into this shit, right? You know? But so what happened was you learn how to get through that, right? And we learn how to be resourceful. When you realize that your problem is not a lack of resources, it's not a lack of money or technology or contacts, it's not. It's your psychology. Because the ultimate resource is resourcefulness. And human emotion, that's what starts wars, that's what makes a business begin, that's how you have children, that's how we end wars, it's all emotion. And so what I really learned to do is how to manage my emotions. So, you know, once you solve that one, the next one shows up. I started a franchise, and a couple franchisees were really upset when one of the people representing on my side said they didn't make things clear to them, and you know, it's all bullshit, but it cost me $5 million in 4 years. I thought the first one was like a $50,000 challenge. Now I got a $5 million challenge. And I took all the money I'd saved in my entire career to pay that off, and I was starting over again. And then I grew from that. And then I finally got, I had a partner in business, and long story short, they had a business that was losing $1 million a day, and he turned it around and making $1.8 billion in EBITDA. He offered me his partner, and I signed a document saying we're all joint and several. There was $40 million in debt. I figured I had $10 million of the debt to have $1.8 billion in infrastructure. And it turned out my partners, 2 of them were broke. They weren't billionaires. They had lost their money. And the other one was the son of a billionaire, and his dad had given him nothing, had $5 million to his name. So I was on the hook shortly after for $120 million when they didn't have $120 million. I figured out how to deal with that. By doing that, I eventually took my companies to this year will surpass $6 billion in 33 companies, because I made it through the threshold of control. So I want you to know, when you see these big numbers by any entrepreneur, they all started with blocking and tackling, and they all started with how do I get both the skill and more importantly the psychology. You can get the skill if you can get that part of you that just doesn't die, the part of you that finds the way to add more value than anybody else so you can keep growing.
Where does the perseverance come from for you? Where does the indomitable spirit come from? Here, the title of your book, Unshakable. Yeah. Where does the drive come from? You did not grow up in easy circumstances.
No.
At all.
No.
No college.
No.
At all.
No. All self-educated.
Self-educated, a household that was not easy.
True.
Is that part of the reason that you are as perseverant as you are, as optimistic as you are, as forceful as you are?
That didn't create my optimism.
No, it didn't create your optimism. But maybe it was a way to
I think it developed moxie. My mother was a really good woman. I didn't talk about it when she was alive, and frankly, even if she passed, I didn't talk about it until one day I was sitting in front of a group of 30 kids that were abused by their parents, and I told them that your biography is not your destiny, and you're not defined by what happened. But I could see in their eyes, a big, tall, white, rich guy, he doesn't understand. And so I told him the whole story. My mom beating me against the wall till my head bled, pouring liquid soap down my throat till I threw up. So I think in order to protect my younger brother and sister, I had to become a practical psychologist. That drove me, and I developed moxie to be able to deal with stuff. So that was the gift. If my mom had been the mother that I wanted to be, I wouldn't be the man I'm proud to be, I think. So that was the gift in it. But I think the drive part is falling in love with your customers. I love people. I've always loved people. And I hate suffering because I've suffered. And I love to light people up, and not just light them up, pump them up. I love to have them have a skill, have them a tool, have a system. When I do my boot camps each year for our business mastery programs, I guarantee everybody there on the day one, you'll have $1 million of value in your opinion, or we'll keep all the stuff you got and we'll give you your money back. No one ever leaves. because I know how to add that value in the business for those people. So I think the drive is the biggest mistake I think businesses make is many businesses are started by people that you built a product you love. And that may still be true for you. Like you built this great jewelry, or you built this great software, or whatever skill set you have. But the problem is the world changes so fast now. I mean, I'm old enough. Who remembers the Sony Walkman? Anybody ancient enough to remember that shit? That product lasted 20 years. Now a product like that won't even last a year, right? The competition is too high. So today, if you and I are going to really succeed, you got to fall in love with your ideal customer. Because look, I'm sure you know that right now the economy we have is looking pretty good, but it's going to correct because we've done nothing since 2008 except print more money. And we didn't even print money. We put ones and zeros in computers. So there's going to be some corrections, and when those happens, it's going to shake people up. You need to fall in love with a client who's going to do well with you even when the economy goes to hell. Think about it, Starbucks. I was sitting across from Howard Schultz and had a great conversation and said, what is he most proud of? And he said, he used to say starting Starbucks. Then he said, now it's surviving 2008. If they closed, I think it was 1,300 stores, if I remember correctly, for $2 coffee. So you need to get your ass ready for winter because it's coming. And if you have got challenges now, but if you do well in winter, you'll dominate for the rest of the time. And the way you do well in winter is you fall in love with your ideal clients, and then you come up with the irresistible offer for them. Steve Jobs created 99-cent songs, but he didn't create that shit. We all know that. Where'd it come from? Who's old enough to remember Columbia House, where you got like 10 albums for $1? Remember that? Or for a quarter and stuff. They built $1 billion company. Tom's Shoes, shitty product. I love him. Great what he does, but 2 for 1, being able to do something where I get it and I benefit somebody else, brilliant idea. Built the whole company on that. He didn't build it on the product. He built it on the mission, right? So you need an irresistible offer for the client who is ideal for you, and you want to fall in love with a client. Don't fall in love with your product or service because those need to change. And if you fall in love with your product or service, somebody's going to beat you. They're going to be anticipating. I always tell businesses, there's 2 businesses you have to run, manage right now. You have to run the business you're in, because if you don't run that, your cash flow, your challenges are going to bite you. But you also have to run the business you're becoming. And both businesses you have to making progress on. If you get all excited about the future and all the cool stuff that's coming, and you go work on that, and there's no cash flow now, you're dead in the water. If you just work on today, you're going to wake up and go, what the hell happened? My competition beat me. It's those 2 sides. And my 33 companies, I look at what the company is now and what it has to be constantly. So we're doing the grunt work, if you will, the important day-to-day work, while we're anticipating the future.
When you were building your businesses, and you've gone through an evolution, as all business owners do. I mean, what you were doing 30 years ago isn't really what you're doing today. How and when did you know that you were doing in life what you were meant to do? Because I think that's part of the quest of the entrepreneur, is to achieve that. When did you know it? How did you know it?
When did I know? I think I've known you. I think you know it at different stages, at different levels, at different times. It's like I can remember one that stands out from you. And you asked that pops in my head is President Clinton calling me. I was with Peter Guber, my partner in the esports business, and we both owned the LAFC new MLS franchise, soccer franchise, building a stadium here. I was at his home in Aspen, and he says, "The president's on the line for you." And it was President Clinton. And I picked the phone, and I talked to the president for a few minutes, and he told me what's going on. And I said, "Mr. President, I'm completely honored you want me to come visit with you, and I'd love to, but I want you to know I'm not a fan." I said, it was the time in which you said the economy's stupid, and then he turned around and did all these things that weren't related to the economy, and he looked like a very weak president at that point. And I remember Peter looking at me going, "You just told the President of the United States you're not a fan." He's calling you, telling you, inviting you to come out to Camp David. But it was great. I said, I want to be sincere. I'd love to serve you, but I'm not a sycophant, right? Yeah. And so I went there and spent time with him. And I think the moment I know that I was doing what I love was, there were a couple other people there, and they were all trying to get his attention. And he and I went for this walk, and this deer went by, and he was telling me, about all these past presidents. And he was honestly at the time complaining about how unfair things were. And I thought, this is the President of the United States, and he's effed up. And I'm 31 years old, and I got to help this bastard, It's like and then that night he wanted me to stay, and it was New Year's, and I'd left Aspen with my family and Peter, and I promised my family I'd come back, and I said, "No, I promised my family, Mr. President." I said, "I'd be happy to work with you in the future," and I left. Leaving the president when everybody else stayed, was a moment I realized I'm doing what I'm really supposed to do. I've kept my priorities straight. My family's still number one. Making contribution is number two. I'm able to play on the scale that's global, and I'm able to play on the scale that matters most, which is local and family. I think that would be a moment that sticks out for me.
I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but since you brought up the subject of presidents, I have to ask you about the current president.
Yes.
Walked
right into that one.
Have you advised him? And if you haven't, how would you help him?
Brain transplant? No, just kidding. Look, I know the president quite well. I've known him for many years. I gave him his first big speech. I might be to blame. He wrote about it in his book. He thought he was coming to speak to 200 people in my seminar with 10,000 people, and he just kind of lost it a little bit. And then his number one piece of feedback on how to succeed was get a prenup. And I thought, oh my God. And I know Mrs. Clinton. I know Mrs. Clinton very well as well. So I had a great difficulty in this last election because I felt like both parties lied. And I think that's extremely hard. I mean, everybody tells white lies, but some were pretty exaggerated and obvious on both sides. And so I found it was a more difficult time. I help people on both sides of the aisle. I don't talk about who I help unless they talk about it publicly. President Clinton shared, he called me one day and said, I got this overhead speaker, the president's calling. I was in my offices, and big offices and 2 floors. And I went to pick up this phone, and sure enough, it's the secretary, and the president's waiting, and says, Tony, they're going to impeach me in the morning. What should I do? I was like, could you call me sooner? It's tomorrow morning, right? What the hell are you going to do, right? So, he said, what should I do? And I said, the answer is not what should I do, you're asking the wrong question. First question I ask is, what do you want? Do you want parents, moms, dads to have their kids look up to you, or do you want to just stay in office? I mean, it's a different outcome. I said, if you want to stay in office, I said, easy for me, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not in your position, but let's be honest, you're never going to get thrown out of office. There's too many votes on your side. So I said, you're going to stay in office if you do nothing. But I said, if you really want to be respected, I said, you can share the truth, you're a lawyer, without putting yourself at risk and still get more of the truth out. And we had this great conversation. He said, man, that's exactly right. That's exactly what I do. So I'll call you back. I'll call you back in 20 minutes. So I'm waiting 20, 30, 45. About an hour later, the secretary calls me and says, President wants you to know he's still resolving things. He wants to get back to you. And then another 30 minutes went by, and I'm thinking, I'm affecting history here, right? And then I saw him standing there with all the Democrats beside him just saying, nope, we're going to kind of keep the same component and went through things. So over the years, I've had a chance to work with people on all sides. And what I think about the current president is he's a terrible communicator, but I think he actually has some good ideas. And I also think he's communicated so poorly, and our world is so divided that now anything he says is seen through that filter. If I think you are the nicest man in the world, it totally controls my experience of you. It has nothing to do with you. It's my belief. If you treat me mean one day and we're best friends, I'll probably go, you're having a bad day, right? If I can't resolve it with you. Mm-hmm. And who's ever had a bad day where you hope somebody else thought that about you, you were just having a bad day, right? Yeah. So, but if I think you're a manipulating bastard, and I'm wrong, but I believe it, and you don't treat me mean, you treat me real nice, what's the first question in our mind? What does he want? So your questions, your belief, your emotion, and your experience has nothing to do with life. It's shaped by what you believe. And most of you believe what you believe not by interacting with these people personally. You're doing it through the media. And the media is a great component, but everything is sound bites. And let's be honest, it's no longer about informing you. It's about startling you. Informing you will never get your attention. There's too much. We got oceans, people say that we're living in an information society. That's total bullshit. The information society died a long time ago, right? We're drowning in information. We're starving for wisdom. And what we get now are sound bites. And now people don't, it's not news anymore. On both sides of the table, people basically pretend it's news when it's all commentary. And so your perception, it's like I had lunch recently with George W. Bush. I brought him out to speak to a group of my funding groups. And I bring out people on both sides of the aisle. And this year we're working with President Obama to see if we can get him in. But to give you an idea, most people there thought, they're more liberal, and they were thinking this guy's evil. And after 2 hours of conversation, there wasn't a person that still thought that. Right. They liked him, but I asked him about his decisions, and they got to see why he made the decisions he did. And when you see the why, instead of all the bullshit you hear and the generalizations that he's an evil guy, you start to go, wow, I might have made a different decision. I might not have with that information that he had at that time. And I asked him about the current president, and it was still during the election when this was occurring. And I said, obviously, I know you wanted your brother to win. And I admired President Bush for never attacking the past president. He never attacked President Obama. He was a class act, even when he disagreed. So he told me privately what he felt. And then he said, Tony, I remember when Nixon was elected, and he said, I thought that was the end of the American presidency. I mean, the President of the United States is gone. I mean, he's evil, he did the wrong thing. And he said he didn't destroy it. He didn't. And he said, so here's what I figured out. The office is bigger than the occupant. And I really believe that's true. I think if you want to go home tonight with a little bit of comfort inside, go back to that truth. The office is bigger than the occupant. And you see it when he does things, and then there's a judicial branch that balances it. And I think we're in a situation where the biggest challenge we have as a society is we've demonized the other side on almost every issue. Right. It used to be that, congressmen and senators would go fight like crazy on the floor, and then they go have a beer together. Now you're radioactive if you talk to somebody. And that's huge. I met Mr. Gorbachev. I got a chance to fly him for 4.5 hours, and I asked him what ended the Cold War, and he said the end of demonization. He said it used to be you guys were attacking us, and everything you did was evil. We were the evil empire, and we knew you were evil. And he said one day, he said, I was sitting there with President Reagan, and he was lecturing me. And he said, I could feel the anger. He said, I could feel my face burning red. I was so mad. And I said to him, you are not my teacher, and I am not your student, and you will not lecture me. And he said, then I lectured him on the evils of capitalism. And then we're going back and forth, and he said, so that's when in the Cold War. And I said, that's a really great answer, but I'm with you for 4 hours, and I want to know the moment. What's the moment? I'm a student of history. What changed the world? Because most of us forget. That's probably, take away terrorism. Terrorism is nothing compared to the level of nuclear assault that the USSR and the US had at that stage. Biggest change we've had. And he thought for a moment, and he shared this great moment with me. He said, he hit his leg, he's talking through an interpreter, but he recognizes, understands a lot of English. He's smacking his leg and giggling like a little kid. He goes, I will tell you the moment. He said, we were having this fight, back and forth, back and forth. I was lecturing him, he was lecturing me, and all of a sudden he just stood up like this, and he said, this is not working. And he turned and walked 3 steps away, and then he turned back and said, can we start fresh? My name is Ron. Are you Mikhail? And it had that same impact it did on you just now. He said, he was laughing uncontrollably. He goes, I knew I could do business with this man. You had to love the man. And then he said, Reagan also knew that Gorbachev loves children. And there are no children going to go to the USSR, right? Soviet Union. And Reagan brought a group of children over and let them be in the care of Gorbachev. And he said it completely changed the game for him. So it was a moment, just a moment of breaking somebody's pattern. And that works in an intimate relationship, it works in a business challenge, but it also works on the scale of society and history.
I want to go to audience questions, and I hope you all have sent some to the Iconic Tour hashtag. I'll go to those in just a sec. But from politics back to entrepreneurialism and entrepreneurship, you've built businesses, you've faced business challenges, you have talked to people like the people in this room, entrepreneurs. What do they ask you most, and what do you tell them?
Time. Time seems to be the largest issue. How many of you have time issues in running your business, having to have a life and your time? Can I see your hands out there who feels like that's there? So you can see it's about 90% of this room, right? And some people are just too tired to raise their hand. But the issue of time is not the real issue. The real issue is that they're operating as an operator, not an owner. And so what I start to do, in the beginning, you have to do both, right? But what I start to do is show them how you have to be able to break off and get other people to do things. But more importantly, I teach people, I do a 5-day boot camp, I call Business Mastery, a couple times a year, and we bring in businesses from all over the world, literally. And we have people just starting a business, and we have people with, businesses that are doing $1 billion, $2 billion, $3 billion. And what you find is that there's a common pattern amongst all these group of people where they find themselves, if it's a small business, they do everything because they feel like they're the only one who can do it, or they tried someone else and they failed. Well, that happens in every business. You have to begin to leverage yourself, or you're just going to be self-employed, and you'll never have the scalability. A business is a system that adds value even when you're not there. And you as a leader have to get good enough to both hire people and train people so that you're not a manager. A manager works with people to make sure they get the job done while you're there. But if you have to be there, could I run 33 companies? I mean, every 4 days I'm on a plane train